My name is Lauren Bennett. I used to believe that 10 years of marriage meant safety, security, trust. But one evening, everything changed. It was our anniversary. 10 years to the day Derek and I stood beneath a canopy of string lights and promised forever. To celebrate, he took me to the Ember Light. It's the highest restaurant in the city. A place you don't just dine, you perform success. The chandeliers sparkled like constellations. The skyline stretched wide behind our table like a painted mural. I wore a navy silk dress. Simple, elegant, still flattering. I wanted him to know I still cared. Derek looked sharp, as always. Black tailored suit, dark tie, a hint of cedarwood cologne that used to feel like home. He smiled at me, but it didn't reach his eyes. Happy anniversary. Lo, he said softly, raising a glass of Cabernet. To us, I said, clinking mine. Even then, something felt off. Slight, barely there, but there. His voice smooth, almost rehearsed. His fingers tapped the table. He kept checking his phone. I asked about his day. Maybe he was tired. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew. Something had been off for months. Late-night calls he labeled as client crises. Weekend meetings that sprung up out of nowhere. His touch colder. His attention elsewhere. He used to stay up helping me build pitch decks when I launched my own consultancy. That man was disappearing. And now, beneath the glow of a skyline we once loved, I had never felt lonelier. Not in 10 years. I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know that this night would end in a hospital. I didn't know that a glass of wine would change everything. But I felt it. And I was right. The signs were always there. Subtle. Easy to excuse. Easy to forgive. But real. Derek and I had always been the couple others admired. He ran a private investment firm. I built my business from scratch. From the outside. We looked like a power couple. But lately, he was somewhere else. It started with missed calls, vague responses. He'd say, "You know how it is." But I didn't. Not anymore. We lost the intimacy. The Sunday morning pancakes. The late-night couch talks. They were gone. Replaced by silence. Or polite, distant smiles. I once asked, "Is something going on?" He looked up from his laptop. Fake smile in place. "No, babe. Just tired." But he wasn't tired. He was gone. A few weeks before our anniversary, I found a second phone, hidden in his gym bag, unlocked, but wiped clean. No contacts, no messages, just a blank home screen. I wanted to believe it was nothing. A work phone. Maybe even not his. But I knew better. That night at Ember Light, I got up halfway through dinner. Told him I needed to freshen up. Truth, I needed to breathe. I stepped into the hallway. Dim lighting, jazz playing soft overhead, cool marble beneath my heels. I leaned against the wall. My heart raced, but I didn't know why. That's when I heard it. Mrs. Bennett, a voice, soft, nervous. I turned. It was our waitress. Young, maybe 20, dark hair pulled into a neat braid. Her name tag said Tessa. She glanced around before stepping closer. "I'm really sorry to bother you, but I have to tell you something." I blinked. "What is it?" She lowered her voice. "I saw your husband. Put something in your wine." My blood froze. "What?" she whispered. "When you went to the restroom earlier, I was clearing the table behind you. He took something from his pocket, dropped it into your glass. It dissolved fast. I don't know what it was, but it didn't feel right." I stared at her, convinced she was wrong. Derek could be cold, distant, but poison. "You're sure?" I asked. She nodded, eyes wide. "I've seen him here before. He's always careful, calculated. I wouldn't say anything if I wasn't sure." The hallway felt like it was closing in. My chest tightened. She glanced toward the bathroom. "I have to go. If it were me, I'd want to know." Then she disappeared, just like that. And I stood there, one hand gripping the wall, the other clutching my clutch like it was the only real thing left. I wanted to believe she was mistaken, that Derek had stirred sugar, or checked his reflection, But deep down, I knew he was no longer just a stranger. He might be something worse. I looked in the mirror. Navy dress, familiar face, but my eyes had changed. Sharper, focused. I had a decision to make. If she was wrong, I'd look paranoid. But if she was right, I couldn't afford to pretend. I smoothed my dress, took a breath, and walked back toward the dining room. The hum of voices, the soft clinking of silverware, the golden glow of candlelight. It all came rushing back as I stepped into the dining room. I walked slowly, steadily. Our table was still there, set for two. Derek didn't look up right away. His phone was in his hand, face down now. Maybe he sensed something. Maybe he always did. "Everything okay?" he asked. Casual. I smiled. "Yeah, just needed a moment." "You sure you look pale, headache?" I said. "Nothing serious." I sat down slowly. My eyes went to the wine glasses. His on the left, mine on the right, somewhere in one of them. The truth was waiting. I smiled, reached across the table. "This wine's too good to waste," I said, light and warm. In one smooth motion, I slid his glass toward me and nudged mine toward him. He didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't react. His eyes were back on his phone, fingers tapping away at something he'd never show me. I took a sip. It was rich, dry, bitter, in a way I hadn't expected. It clung to my tongue. "To 10 more years," I said, raising the glass. He looked up, blinked once, smiled faintly. "To 10 more," he echoed. Lifting his own, he drank, deeply. I watched his throat move, watched the liquid disappear, my glass still half full. The silence between us thickened. I kept smiling, but my heart pounded. Had I just made the biggest mistake of my life? Had I tested a theory that wasn't real, or had I just turned his plan back on him? He leaned back, napkin to his lips. Calm, relaxed in a way that didn't come from comfort, but from control. He thought everything was going exactly as he planned. I twirled my fork, forced my hand to steady. My fingers trembled beneath the table. I studied him, every blink, every breath, every flicker of thought behind his eyes. "So," I said lightly, "how's the big deal going? The one that's been keeping you up at night?" He paused. His expression changed slightly. "It's complicated," he said, tone clipped. "High stakes, high risk. You know how it is." I nodded. "Yeah, but you've always liked high stakes, haven't you?" He didn't answer. He took a sip of water. Then his eyes flicked toward the wine glasses. His glass, my glass. He looked again. "You're not drinking much," he said. "Saving it," I replied. "This one deserves to be savored." He nodded, slowly. Then his fingers started drumming, faster this time, then slower, then stopped. A second later, he coughed, once, dry, then again, and again. My heart slammed against my ribs. His hand reached up to his forehead. "You okay?" I asked. Calm, controlled. "Yeah," he murmured. "Just tired." But his face was pale. The color drained from his skin. A thin sheen of sweat bloomed across his brow. His hands began to tremble. He reached for the glasses. Missed. His glass tipped. Wine spilled across the table like blood on white linen. "Derek," I said, rising. My chair scraped the floor. He sagged forward. Like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Behind me, someone gasped. A tray hit the floor. Silence swept the room. "Call 911, I shouted. And then Tessa appeared, pale, shaking. She looked at me, then at him. The man slumped over the table. The man I had loved for 10 years. He wasn't sick. He was unraveling, and I knew. The glass he meant for me, Bimbit had turned on him. His plan had failed. I had survived. The emergency room was cold, not the temperature, the feeling. That hollow, humming stillness where time feels suspended. I sat alone, plastic chair, navy dress wrinkled, Cabernet stains across the skirt, the wine that nearly ended my life. The fluorescent lights buzzed, a vending machine hummed nearby. A news anchor whispered from a wall-mounted TV no one was watching. I hadn't called anyone, Who would I even call? My parents were in Arizona now. My coworkers thought I had the perfect life. I couldn't bring myself to say it out loud what he might have done. My hands trembled in my lap. The scene kept replaying. The way he looked at the wine. The way his body folded in on itself. The way I stood there and watched. The door opened. A woman in a white coat stepped in. Mrs. Bennett, I stood. My legs barely held. I'm Dr. Patel, she said. Come with me. She led me to a quiet corner. Your husband is stable, she said, but he's sedated. He ingested a large dose of diazepam, not over the counter, highly concentrated, potentially lethal if untreated. I swallowed hard. That was meant for me. I said. She didn't flinch. A waitress saw him put something in my drink. I said, so I switched our glasses. Dr. Patel nodded. That would explain it. The dosage in his system was extremely high. He's lucky you acted. I looked away. My throat tightened. I didn't even know for sure. She rested her clipboard against her chest. We'll need to involve the authorities. This isn't just medical. It's criminal. I nodded slowly. The right thing. Was that what I had done? I didn't feel brave. I felt split in two. In one world, my husband was my protector. In the other, he had tried to erase me, and I was finally beginning to understand why. It didn't take long for the truth to follow. 2 days after the hospital, I got a call. It was Lacey, one of Derek's former clients. She used to rave about how he saved her retirement. Her voice was shaky. I didn't know who else to tell. She said, but I think Derek's firm is in serious trouble. Serious was an understatement. By the end of the week, everything unraveled, quietly, then loudly. The company that once made headlines for its rapid success gone, bad trades, risky investments, mounting losses hidden behind glossy reports, creditors were circling, lawsuits were being drafted, and that wasn't all. I found papers in our home office, stuffed into an old storage bin I hadn't touched in years, letters from banks, warnings from the SEC, and one unsigned document that made my blood run cold, a power of attorney. If I were incapacitated, Derek would gain full control of my business assets. Not just my personal money, my company, my legacy. That was the plan. He didn't want me dead. Not exactly. He wanted me silent, gone, out of the way. He needed access, authority, ownership. If I couldn't speak, if I couldn't act, he could step in as the husband, the legal heir to everything I'd built. And the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the calm patience with which he smiled at me through dinner, touched my hand, called me low, acted like nothing was wrong. He was drowning. And he was ready to drag me under just to keep himself afloat. But I didn't drown. I didn't drink that wine. And now the man who toasted to 10 more years was facing criminal charges instead of champagne. All because I listened to a whisper. All because I trusted my gut over his smile. The media found the story before I was ready. Headlines bloomed overnight. Investment star hospitalized after wine incident. My name was there too. Always tied to his. But no one knew the full story. Not yet. Some friends called. Confused. Others went silent. Discomfort makes people disappear. And I didn't blame them. Who wants to believe a man like Derek, a man who made toasts, smiled big, dressed well, could be capable of something so cruel? But I wasn't interested in saving face. I was interested in the truth. So when the detectives called, I didn't hesitate. I told them everything. From the moment Tessa whispered in the hallway, to the glass I swapped, to the bin full of secrets in our office, emails, notes, journals. I handed it all over. Derek was charged with attempted poisoning, and with multiple counts of financial fraud. His lawyer tried to spin it. Stress, pressure, a mental break. But I had lived beside that mind for 10 years. I knew the difference between a breakdown and a blueprint. I didn't go to the first hearing. I stayed home, drank tea by the window. The sky was overcast. It felt fitting. I didn't cry. Not that day. Instead, I opened my laptop, blank document, new page, and I began to write. Not about revenge, not even anger. I wrote about survival, Because the most dangerous place for a woman isn't always a dark alley. Sometimes, it's the seat across from the man who says he loves her. Sometimes, it's the silence after a lie, the second guessing, the gentle erosion of who you are. I wrote about listening, not to noise, but to instincts, even when they whisper, especially when they whisper, because that whisper saved me. People asked me later, when did I stop seeing myself as a victim? Maybe it was when I swapped the glasses. Maybe it was when I believed the scared voice of a stranger over the steady tone of my husband. Or maybe it was later when I stood in front of the mirror and finally respected the woman staring back. The months after were hard. I started therapy, cut ties with anyone still clinging to the fantasy of our marriage. I gave myself permission to grieve. Not just the relationship, but the years I spent dimming my light so someone else could shine. Then I started speaking. It began at a small women's leadership conference, then a podcast, then a panel at a nonprofit for women who'd faced coercion or manipulation. I didn't share my story for pity. I shared it because silence nearly killed me, and I wasn't going to stay silent anymore. Today, I'm not defined by what happened at the Ember Light. I'm defined by what I did after. I rebuilt, and my company's stronger than ever. I hired Tessa, the waitress who warned me, as my executive assistant. She's studying business now. And I mentor her proudly. People still ask if I ever loved Derek. Yes, deeply. But love isn't an excuse to abandon your safety, and familiarity doesn't justify betrayal. And no one, no matter how charming, has the right to make you question your own truth. If you're still listening, and any part of my story feels familiar, then hear this. Trust yourself. Listen closely to the quiet. Don't wait for proof when your instincts already know. Don't wait for the glass to tip, the mask to fall, the crash to confirm what your gut has whispered all along. Because if you've ever escaped something that felt inescapable, you deserve to honor that survival. This is Lauren's story, but it could easily be yours. The truth is, I didn't want to believe it. Not at first. That Derek who'd held my hand in hospital waiting rooms, who brought me soup when I was sick, who called me low when no one else did, could be the same man who planned to erase me. But truth doesn't care what we want. It stands. It waits. And eventually, it demands to be seen. It wasn't just about the sedative. It wasn't just the documents in the storage bin or the second phone he kept hidden. It was all of it. The long erosion. The way he made me doubt myself without raising his voice. The late meetings. The small lies. The moments that didn't feel wrong enough to fight about, but wrong enough to wake me at night. The betrayal wasn't loud. It was quiet, polished, patient. And I think that's what cut the deepest. The legal process was slow. Each new charge revealed more rot beneath the surface. His company wasn't just failing, it was built on fraud. He'd falsified documents and used other people's names to open lines of credit. He even tried to list me as a guarantor on loans I never saw. It was never just about love. It was about control. Derek didn't want a partner. He wanted a prop. Someone polished enough to make him look steady. Someone he could stand beside and still feel bigger. And the moment I became inconvenient, the moment I might challenge that power, he chose to erase me, neatly, painlessly, quietly. But I wasn't quiet anymore. After the hearing, I stopped checking the news. Stopped explaining myself to people who didn't want to understand. Some friends faded away. Others tried to rationalize it. You two always looked so happy. He must have snapped. But that's the problem. People don't want to believe that harm can come wearing a suit, that danger can hold your hand, pour your wine, kiss your cheek, but it can. And it does. I remember one morning, a few months later, I was in my office. The sunlight came through the blinds just right. There was coffee in my mug. And I had just hired my 5th employee. Tessa walked in with a printout. She wore glasses that day, looked sharp. Do you need anything else? Lauren, she asked. I smiled. No, Tessa, I'm good. And I meant it. For the first time in years, I was good. Not perfect, not healed all the way, but whole. I started a mentorship group for women in transition entrepreneurs, survivors, divorcees, women re-entering the workforce after walking away from something hard. I called it Second Glass, because sometimes it's not the wine that matters. It's which glass you choose, which story you believe. The one they hand you full of empty promises, or the one you write yourself. I don't think about Derek often anymore. I know he's serving time. I know his firm is gone. I know people still whisper about us in places I used to go. But I also know this. He didn't break me. He revealed me. That night at the Ember Light, when I slid his glass across the table and smiled as he raised it to his lips, that was the moment I stopped waiting to be rescued. That was the moment I became the one in control, the watcher, the listener, the woman who trusted herself and lived. People think surviving is about strength. It's not. It's about listening. It's about stillness. It's about hearing the whisper and not needing to shout to believe it. It's about letting yourself be wrong, just in case you're right. It's about knowing that no one gets to define your reality but you. And when you finally choose your own voice over someone else's comfort, that's when the real life begins. I never imagined I'd be the one telling this story, but life doesn't care about imagination. It cares about truth. And the truth is, I stayed too long. Not because I was blind, but because I wanted to believe. Believe in the man I married, believe in the life we built, believe that a bad season wasn't the end. But belief can be dangerous when it replaces reality. And for too long, I let love be a reason to stay silent. There was a day 6 months after the trial when I drove past the old restaurant, the Ember Light. They'd replaced the entryway. New paint, new host stand, but the building was the same. That's the thing about places. They change just enough to fool you. But the bones stay the same, just like people. I didn't go in. I just sat in my car, engine off, listening to the quiet hum of traffic around me. And I let myself remember. Not the fear, not the betrayal, but the decision. That one small act of switching glasses, of trusting a whisper, of choosing myself. That was the real turning point. Not when he collapsed, not when the charges were filed, but when I said, no more. No more gaslighting. No more apologies for asking questions. No more minimizing my intuition. That was the night I stopped shrinking. Tessa and I celebrated her graduation last month. She finished her business degree early, top of her class. We toasted with sparkling cider in my office. Just the two of us. No grand speeches, no fanfare, just quiet pride. She smiled and said, "You changed my life." And I looked at her and said, "No, you saved mine." Sometimes women ask me if I'm afraid to love again, if I'm afraid to trust. And I tell them this, I'm not afraid to love. But I'll never silence myself to be loved again. I'll never dim just to make someone else comfortable. I'll never mistake stillness for safety. And I'll never drink from a glass I didn't pour myself. There is power in surviving, but even more power in choosing who you become after. I'm no longer the woman at that candlelit table, unsure of what she felt. I'm no longer the wife begging silence to feel like peace. I'm no longer waiting for the moment to make sense. I am the moment. I am the consequence. And I am the beginning of something entirely mine. So if you're still listening, Arsul, and if something inside you feels tight, unfamiliar, like a room you haven't walked into yet, go there. Open the door. Ask the questions. Switch the glass, because survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about reclaiming the right to be whole, to speak, to stand, to walk away even when no one else sees the fire. This is my voice, but it might echo in yours. So if this story touched you, even a little, let it remind you. Your gut is not an inconvenience. It is your compass, and your story, no matter how quiet, deserves to be heard. Don't wait to be saved. Don't wait to be believed. Believe yourself. This is Lauren's story, but survival. That can be yours too. If no one's told you yet, you're not alone. You're not crazy, and you don't have to drink what they serve. Pour your own glass. Take your own breath. And walk out into the light. You've already started. Thank you for listening. If this spoke to you, don't forget to share it. Subscribe to The Art of Revenge. We tell true stories, stories of strength, of clarity, of quiet victory. Your voice matters, and your truth, it's never too small to be heard. This story is a powerful reminder that danger doesn't always come from strangers. It can sit across the dinner table, smile sweetly, and know your favorite wine. For seniors, especially women who've lived long lives filled with relationships, responsibilities, and resilience, the message is clear: never ignore your instincts. Sometimes the most threatening situations aren't loud or violent, they're quiet, calculated, and deeply personal. Whether it's a financial decision, a new relationship, or a subtle shift in behavior from someone close, you must trust the wisdom that age and experience have given you. Silence and politeness should never come at the cost of your safety or dignity. You are never too old to reclaim your voice, reset your boundaries, or rewrite your story. If something feels off, it probably is, and listening to that whisper could save your life. Let this serve as a call to action. Speak up, ask questions, protect what you've built. Your life, your legacy, and your peace are worth defending. If this story stirred something in you, share it with a friend. You never know whose quiet courage you might awaken.